As I mentioned briefly, this whole chapter is about adjectives, and specifically it's about third declension adjectives, which, as you would expect, use third declension endings. The name's pretty obvious there. But first, I think it would be good to review what we should already know about adjectives, and this review is specifically about first and second declension adjectives. So if we look here at this chart, and apologies, already I wrote out a lot of this so the video could be shorter. You might have to pause it. But first and second declension adjectives. The name's pretty obvious. They use first declension endings, which are used for the feminine forms here. A, I, is, us, is. And then we use second masculine and second neuter endings for masculine and neuter respectively. So we have us, o, I, is, os, is, and o, a, is, is. These are things that we should already know. Oh no. These are things that we should already know. Essentially, first declension was introduced in chapter, chapter 2, and then second masculine and second neuter were chapters 3 and chapter 4. So we should already know these endings, and these have been ones that, these are adjectives that have had that us, ending this whole time. So like longus here, longus, longa, longum, bonus, bona, bonum, anything like that is just indicating that it's a first and second declension adjective. And one of the important things to keep in mind is we're going to keep adding complexity. So this adjective only uses first and second declension endings. So to highlight sort of some of the differences, I over here have put nomen here. Nomen, which is third declension and neuter. So making it agree with longus here. So if someone like said, hey, like a long name or something like that. And if you look, most of the endings are different, right? So if we look at almost every one of them going down the list, they're all different. The only one that's the same are the A's here for longa and nomina and longa and nomina, which is just from neuter rules. But besides that, the endings aren't the same. So as we keep going, now that we're adding thirds too, there's even a better, there's even a higher chance that adjectives and nouns won't have the same endings, even though they agree in every way that they would need to. Gender, so both of these are neuter, right? So there we go, gender. Number, right? Singular here, or plural here, and then case. And this is listing out all of them, so this is how they would agree for every number and case for that gender. So just an important thing to keep in mind. Endings aren't really going to matter as much as gender, number, case when it comes to adjectives. You need to know the charts. You need to know your charts. But this is all first and second, and we should know that already. So going on to third declension adjectives here. There are 3 types of third declension adjectives, and basically it's based on the number of endings that it has. So there's 3 endings, or third declension adjectives that have 3 endings, and this would be some example like, let me get a different pen here, like celer, celer, celeris, celere, not celery. Okay, and all this is showing you is that you have a form that would be for masculine, feminine, and neuter. And like every other one, these are the nominative forms. So masculine, nominative singular, feminine, nominative singular, neuter, nominative singular, celer, celeris, celere. And that's 3. 1, 2, 3. Pretty simple. There are ones that are third declension, but they have 2 endings. This would be one like brevis, brewe, or omnis omne, one that we're going to see a ton in Latin. And really the same thing holds true here, except there's only just this one form for masculine and feminine. The other one, brewe, here with that E, is used just for neuter. And then there's ones that have just one ending, and an example of that would be the word ingens, and then you're given the genitive of ingentis. And really there's no difference in the nominative form here for masculine, feminine, or neuter. They're all just the same there. And the nice thing here is that all three types of third declension adjectives decline like a third declension I stem noun. And now I know that we didn't cover those for a really long time, and realistically it was towards the end of the year last year, but here's what they look like. Third declension I stems, just for review here. You can have ones that are masculine or feminine, okay? And like herbs, the word for city. And if you look, it's just like any other third. Herbs, herbis, herbi, herbem, herbe, herbase, herbium. This is the one that's different. Herbibus, herbase, herbibus, herbibus. So really it's just this IUM instead of a UM that we would expect that makes it I stem, right? We add an I in a certain spot. And then for neuter here, we have animal, and it's animal is animal because it's nominative and accusative are the same. And then animali, that one's a little different there, but it's I stem and neuter, so that's why the rule follows. And then animalia, which we would expect, IA, we'd expect an A because it's neuter. Animalium, ibus, ia, and animalibus. So these are pretty much the endings that we're going to expect once we look at the types of these adjectives are going to be ones like this. Really, they're pretty much third declension and regular third declension, except where the I stems are different, which is genitive plural and then neuter nominative and accusative plural, really. And that's it. So as we're going through these, you should pretty much see these endings keep showing up. So what I did is I sort of filled out these charts at least a little bit to save time, and then we'll fill them in here now. So right here we have a third declension ending that has 3 endings and one that has 2 endings. Keller, which was mentioned above, and Brewis. So if we go through your neuter form or your nominative forms, Keller, Kelleris for feminine, and then Kellere neuter, and then it's just is for both of those I's. Okay, Kellerem. Neuter would say that it's still going to be Kellere, nominative and accusative neuter are the same. And then, as was mentioned, these are both going to be I's. Okay, so anytime you have an ablative singular, and we can fill in even over here, ablative singular is always going to be an I for these adjectives. And then going to the plural, it functions like any other plural. It's Kelleres, Kellerium, where that I stem is, IUM, Kelleribus, and ibus, Kelleres, and Kelleribus. The only one here that's a little bit different is we're going to have Kellera, okay? And that A is going to be there for, again, neuter nominative and accusative plural are going to end A there. Okay, now once we go over to Brewis, it's going to be pretty much the same stuff. We have IS's, we have I's, we have Brewem and Brewe, because accusative and nominative have to be the same, and then those I's. And then we have Brewes. Oh, Brewes, Brewa, Brewium, IUM, Ibus, Ace, and because that has to agree, nominative and accusative, neuter, and then Ibus. So if you look here, really, with this chapter, there's not a whole lot going on once you know that set of endings that we should have known from a few chapters ago already with I stem nouns. If you know that, you know this sort of genitive ending, and you know your little rules with the I's here, right, as we keep going, and here, it's really not too difficult as we keep going here. So, oh, and I have made a slight mistake there, my bad. Getting too excited about these adjectives. It should be an IA here. Just like animal becomes animalia, there you should have an IA there in the nominative and accusative neuter plurals. Ia instead of just an A, and that's my bad. And then lastly, moving on to ingens, one ending, right? So we have ingens and then ingens again. It's going to be the same way. Ingens, ingentis, ingenti, ingentem. And remember, neuter and accusative, nominative and accusative in the neuter have to be the same. So we have ingens again, okay, and then ingenti. Right? Because we need that rule of eyes here in the third declension adjectives. And then it's just like all the other ones, es, eum, ibus, ace, and ibus. Again, the only one that's different is you have an IA here and an IA there. And outside of that, you should be able to notice that for the most part, every one of these is the same. Once you get those endings down, there's really not much to it as far as forming it. It's just sort of getting used to having all of these endings, okay? And this IA becomes an IUM. It's a little tricky. But besides that, you should be okay. Now, last thing I want to talk about is just the idea of adjective use. Okay, now we can have pretty much 4 uses that are alluded to in the chapter. There's attributive, so this would just be the idea of saying something like, wise students, right? It's just giving an attribute to a noun, right? Adjectives modify nouns, so wise students, okay? You can have one that's in the predicate, which is sort of the same thing, but it would be something along the lines of the way it's phrased. The students are wise, right? So that adjective that's attributive now just shows up after your verb, or in the predicate, right? The students are wise. A substantive adjective, again, and these are this is another one. We've had all 3 of these so far. Attributive, predicate, and substantive we've already had. But a substantive one is where an adjective is standing in place of a noun. So this would be something like only the wise are vegan. I couldn't resist. I had to use that. But only the wise are vegan, right? And the wise there, right, stands for like wise people, wise men, wise animals. I don't know. That's been an argument that only evolved animals wouldn't eat other animals. I don't know. Whatever. Mostly this was a joke. But the idea here is that the wise, we don't have anything going with it. So it's standing in place of a noun, right? And then we have the idea of an objective complement. So that sounds weird, right? But this would be something like school makes the students wise, right? So objective means it's in the object. So school makes, and school's making what? The students, okay? So this would be technically your direct object there, right? School's making the students. And then a complement to that object. So a complement, this is going here, modifying your direct object. School makes the students wise. We do this in English, right? I just gave you English examples, but we'll see all of these. And so these are some uses to sort of keep in mind as we go through and keep working with these adjectives. So hopefully you sort of realize after this, 3rd declension adjectives, not much to them outside of just knowing your 3rd declension set of endings, and specifically your I stem set of endings, these ones right here. Okay, so we'll keep moving along, know these endings, and let's get to the practice.